You don't fit in anymore, my daughter-in-law hissed, while my son just watched. They thought they could erase me after I built their world, but they forgot one thing. I know exactly how to tear it down. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and tell you how a man can lose everything, only to find his strength in the rubble. My name is David. For 40 years, the scent of sawdust was my alarm clock. It smelled like promise. I built Summit Builders from nothing. Just me, a rusty Ford truck, and a belief that if you build something right, it lasts. My hands are rough, calloused from brick and timber. They tell the story of my life, a story I thought had a happy ending. My wife, Mary, used to say I didn't just build houses. I built foundations. She was my foundation. When she passed away 10 years ago, the ground beneath my feet cracked. It was just me and Michael, my son. I looked at him, this boy with his mother's eyes, and I made a promise. I promised Mary I would give him the life we never had. I would give him everything, and I did. I sacrificed it all. Weekends, gone. Holidays, just another workday. I missed school plays and baseball games. I worked double shifts, triple shifts. I wore faded jeans while he learned to wear tailored suits. I did it gladly. That's what a father does. You give, and you don't count the cost. Or at least that's what I thought. When Michael joined Summit Builders, I felt a sense of peace. My legacy was secure. He was smart, charming, ambitious. 5 years ago, I retired. I handed him the reins. I kept the majority share, 51%, but I stepped back. I trusted him. I thought the house was finished. I was wrong. I had forgotten about the termites. Then he met Jessica. Jessica was like a piece of modern architecture. All sharp angles, polished surfaces, and incredibly expensive. She had this restless energy, a hunger for more that was mesmerizing and terrifying. She didn't see Summit Builders as a legacy of craftsmanship. She saw it as an ATM, and she was ready to break it open. I had moved into a small, comfortable condo. I enjoyed the quiet, but slowly the dynamic shifted. Michael started using words I hated. Aggressive expansion, leveraging assets, words that sounded hollow, words that didn't build anything real. They were Jessica's words, and they were poison. The first real crack appeared during a lunch meeting a few months ago. We sat in a fancy restaurant, the kind where the portions are small and the prices are high. Jessica was there. She always was now. "Dad, we need to modernize," Michael said. He stirred his coffee rapidly, a nervous habit he'd had since he was a kid. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Modernize is fine, Michael," I said, keeping my voice steady, "but you're taking on too much debt. You're bidding on projects we don't have the manpower for. You're cutting corners on materials." I looked him in the eye. "We don't cut corners, ever." Jessica sighed loudly. Tap, tap, tap. Her manicured nails hit the mahogany table. The sound grated on my nerves. "David," she began, her voice smooth as silk but sharp as glass. "Your methods are charming, truly, but they are obsolete." "Obsolete? The market is booming," she continued, flashing a brilliant smile that didn't reach her eyes. "If we don't expand now, we'll be left behind." "If you expand too fast, you collapse," I countered. "Summit Builders stands for quality. That's our brand." Jessica leaned forward. The smile vanished. "Our brand," she said coldly, "is whatever I say it is, and I say it's luxury, exclusivity, and growth." She looked at me like I was a stain on her expensive carpet. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. The tension grew thicker every day. It was suffocating. I tried to advise Michael, but he started avoiding my calls. He was always in a meeting. When we did talk, he deferred to Jessica on everything. I felt like I was watching my life's work being dismantled, brick by brick, and I was powerless to stop it. Jessica had an obsession. It was called the Crestview Estate, a mansion on the hill overlooking the city. Old money, status, everything Jessica craved. It was also absurdly expensive. I knew they couldn't afford it, not without sinking the company deeper into debt. But Jessica didn't care about debt. She only cared about image. I went to the office one afternoon. I overheard them talking in Michael's office. The door was slightly open. "We need an image that reflects our success, Michael," Jessica was saying. "Crestview is that image. It's where we belong. We need to make a statement." "It's a lot of money, Jess," Michael mumbled, a weak protest. "Money is a tool, Michael, not a barrier," she snapped. Don't you want the world to see how far you've come? I walked away, my stomach churning. They weren't just reckless, they were delusional, and they were dangerous. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Michael and Jessa hosted a lavish dinner party at their new house. I privately called it the Glass Box. Massive, ultra-modern, cold, sterile. It was designed entirely to impress. It had no soul. I was invited, almost as an afterthought. I should have stayed home. I felt out of place the moment I walked in. The glittering crowd, investors, politicians, socialites. I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of water, watching Michael work the room. Jessica was in her element. Her laughter rang through the large, echoing space. She was the queen of the glass box, but I knew how fragile glass could be. During dinner, one of the investors, a wealthy man named Mr. Harrison, asked me about the early days of Summit Builders. He seemed genuinely interested. He was older, gray-haired with sharp eyes. Well, I began, feeling a familiar warmth as I talked about the hard work. It was about trust. Your word was your bond. You took care of your people, and they took care of you. Jessica stiffened beside me. I could feel the tension radiating off her. The room seemed to quiet down. Before I could finish, Jessica interrupted. Her voice was loud, fueled by champagne. Trust is essential, of course, she said, flashing that brilliant fake smile at Mr. Harrison. But David's vision was always a bit small. Small. The word hit me like a slap. She looked at me. Her smile tightened. Michael and I are taking Summit Builders to the next level. We believe in scale. The old ways were sweet, but they don't build empires. The condescension was palpable. I was the sweet old man, the relic. I looked at Michael. He was staring at his plate, his face flushed. He said nothing. The silence was louder than Jessica's insult. My throat burned. I swallowed hard. I wouldn't let them see me break. Not here. Not now. I excused myself shortly after dinner. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, trying to calm the anger burning in my chest. The kitchen was all stainless steel and marble. Cold, hard. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles white. Michael and Jessica followed me. "Dad, wait," Michael said. His voice was strained. I turned around. Hope flared in my chest. Maybe he was finally going to stand up for me. But the look on Jessica's face killed that hope instantly. Jessica was standing there, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing. "You embarrassed us tonight, David," she hissed. The mask was off now, the ugliness exposed. "I embarrassed you?" I said, my voice rising. "By talking about the values this company was built on. The values your empire is currently exploiting? Your values are irrelevant," she snapped. The sound echoed off the marble floor. "We are trying to secure millions in funding, and you're talking about taking care of your people like it's a charity. It's pathetic." "Jessica, that's enough," Michael said weakly. He put a hand on her arm. She shook it off violently. "No, it's not enough," she screamed. "I am sick of your constant interference, your judgment, your disapproval. We are trying to build a life here, a future, and you are dragging us down." The words hit me like a physical blow, dragging them down. "I gave you everything," I whispered. The pain was sharp, acute. I sacrificed everything for this family, for this company. I handed it to you on a silver platter. "And we are grateful," Jessica said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But gratitude doesn't secure our status. It doesn't get us Crestview." She stepped closer. I could smell the expensive perfume and the alcohol on her breath. "Frankly, David, you don't fit in anymore. You're a reminder of where Michael came from. The sawdust, the sweat. We are trying to move past that." She paused, took a deep breath, and delivered the final blow. "I can't stand it anymore. I can't breathe when you're around. Your very presence ruins my home, my life, everything I am trying to build. My presence ruins her home." I looked at my son, the boy I raised, the boy I loved more than life itself. I waited for him to defend me. Michael looked away. He shifted his weight. He stared at the floor. He said nothing. That silence cut deeper than any word. In that silence, the foundation I thought I had built crumbled into dust. I was alone, truly alone. "I see," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady, even though my heart was shattering into a million pieces. "If my presence is ruining your home, then I won't impose any longer." I turned and walked out of the glass box. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I walked for a long time. The city lights blurred. I was 65 years old, widowed, and I had just been discarded by my own son. I felt a profound sadness, a deep, aching loss. But as I walked, something else stirred within me. Underneath the pain, a resolve, a clarity. I had built an empire once. I could do it again. And this time I wouldn't let anyone tear it down. The next few weeks were a blur. I checked into a small, clean apartment near the center of the city. The silence was loud, but it was peaceful. There were no judgments, no condescending smiles. I needed advice. I needed a plan. I needed someone I could trust. I called my oldest friend, Robert. Robert was a retired lawyer. He had helped me set up Summit Builders decades ago. He was sharp, wise, and fiercely loyal. We met at a small diner. The coffee was strong, and the bacon was crispy. I told him everything. The dinner party, Jessica's words, Michael's silence. Robert listened patiently. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he cleaned his glasses meticulously. Michael's silence. Robert listened patiently. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he cleaned his glasses meticulously. Michael's for the wall plorsvathet semtimiti about. Diges meistors merijon the red of curtain d. De bizlabo morgen. Meisjes fortibubeld, a habit he had when he was processing difficult information. David, he said finally, they are showing you who they are. It's painful, but it's the truth. They are blinded by ambition and greed. I know, I said, rubbing my tired eyes. But they are destroying the company, Robert. I still own 51%. I have to stop them. It won't be easy, Robert warned. They control the board. They control the narrative. If you try to fight them directly, they will paint you as a bitter old man who can't let go. So what do I do? Just let them destroy everything I built? Robert paused. He pulled a thick file folder from his old leather briefcase. Maybe there's another way. We need to look at your assets. All of them. We need ammunition. But I didn't think I had any ammunition left. We spent the afternoon going through my finances, my savings, my pension. It was comfortable, but not enough to fight a protracted legal battle. And then Robert found something. Something I had completely forgotten. A ghost from the past. David, do you remember the old industrial district, down by the river? Robert asked, pointing to a faded map in the file. I nodded slowly. Yeah, it was a wasteland back in the day. Toxic soil, abandoned factories. About 30 years ago, you bought a large plot of land there, Robert continued. His eyes sparkled. You were going to build a storage facility, but then the zoning changed, and you never used it. You paid almost nothing for it. I vaguely remembered it. It was a stressful time. I thought that was long gone, I said. No, Robert said, a slow smile spreading across his face. It's still in your name, and that area isn't a wasteland anymore. He pulled out a recent newspaper article. The headline read, City Announces Massive Riverfront Redevelopment Project. The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. That worthless plot of land is now sitting on prime real estate, Robert said. Tech companies, luxury developers, they are fighting over it. It's the hottest property in the city. I stared at him, stunned. How much is it worth? I whispered. Robert looked me straight in the eye. Based on current market value, somewhere between $8 and $10 million. I nearly choked on my coffee. $10 million. I had been feeling powerless, while sitting on a gold mine. Michael and Jessica, do they know? I asked, my mind racing. No, Robert said firmly. It was listed under your old holding company, not Summit Builders. They have no idea. Suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. The anger I felt began to shape itself into a strategy. I want to sell it, Robert, I said, my voice gaining strength. Quietly and quickly. I want cash. Robert nodded. I'll make the calls. As Robert started the process, I turned my attention back to Summit Builders. I needed to know the extent of the damage. I needed to see the rot for myself. I called Tom. Tom had been my foreman for 30 years. A good man, honest. He always had a pencil behind his ear. He answered on the second ring. David, is that you? His voice sounded strained, tired. Tom, how are things? Really? A long pause. David, it's bad, Tom said, his voice low. Real bad. They're using cheap materials, Tom continued, the words rushing out. Substandard concrete, untreated lumber, hiring unskilled labor off the street. The quality is gone, David. It's gone. My blood boiled. This wasn't just about money. This was about integrity. And they're firing the old crew, Tom said, his voice cracking. The guys who were loyal to you for decades. But that wasn't the worst part. I went down to the main construction site the next day. I wore an old baseball cap and sunglasses. I didn't want to be recognized. I saw the chaos, the shoddy workmanship. It looked like a disaster zone. And then I saw Tom, standing by his truck. His pencil was gone. He was holding a piece of paper, a pink slip. Tom, the man who had stood by me for 30 years, discarded like trash. I wanted to confront Michael right then and there, to unleash my fury, but Robert's words echoed in my mind. Caution. Strategy. I couldn't show my hand yet. I had to let them believe I was weak, defeated, broken. I met Tom later that day, away from the site. I promise you, Tom, I said, looking him in the eye, I will fix this, but I need time. I need you to trust me. Tom nodded slowly. I always trusted you, David. I still do. The waiting was agonizing, watching them destroy everything I built. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like. It was that trust, the trust of people like Tom, that kept me going. I watched as Michael and Jessica continued their reckless expansion. They secured the massive loans, using the company's assets, my assets, as collateral. They were living the high life, but the ground beneath them was sinking fast. And then the news broke. They had put a bid on Crestview Estate, and won. The news was plastered all over the local papers. Summit Builders CEO and wife purchase historic Crestview Estate. The pictures showed them smiling, holding champagne glasses. I felt a profound sadness. They were living the dream. But it was a dream built on sand, a house of cards, waiting for the wind to blow. And the wind was coming. A few weeks later, Michael called me. He sounded nervous, stressed. Dad? Can we meet? It's important. Just the two of us. We met at the same diner. Michael looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes. His expensive suit wrinkled. He stirred his coffee rapidly. Tap, tap, tap. Dad, I need your help, he started, not meeting my eyes. The company, we're facing a temporary cash flow issue. We need to secure a bridge loan. A bridge loan, that meant they were desperate. A cash flow issue? I said calmly. But you just bought Crestview Estate. That was an investment, Michael said defensively. Essential for our image. But the banks are being difficult. We need more collateral. I waited. I knew what was coming. He finally got to the point. We need you to co-sign the loan, Dad. Using your shares, your 51%, as collateral. It's the only way to save the company. The audacity was staggering. They wanted full control. They wanted to squeeze the last drop of value out of the company before it collapsed. They wanted me to risk everything to save their reckless ambition. They weren't just greedy. They were shameless. Michael saw the look on my face. He shifted tactics, from desperate to manipulative. Mom would have wanted you to help me, Dad, he said, his voice low. She would have wanted us to succeed. She wouldn't want you to let the company die. The emotional blackmail almost worked. Using Mary's memory, the old instinct to protect him, to sacrifice for him, kicked in. My ears rang. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. But then I remembered his silence at the dinner table. I remembered Jessica's cruel words. Your presence ruins my home. I remembered Tom's pink slip. I held firm. I won't risk my shares, Michael, I said, my voice steady. I built this company. I won't enable your self-destruction. Michael's tone shifted from desperate to angry. The mask slipped. How can you be so selfish? He snarled. After everything I've done to build this company's reputation? Your reputation is built on my sacrifices, Michael, I said, my voice hardening. My sweat, my blood, but I'm done sacrificing. I'm done. I stood up and walked out of the diner. My hands were shaking. I'm done. I stood up and walked out of the diner. My hands were shaking, but I felt a strange sense of peace. The battle lines were drawn. They retaliated quickly. They called an emergency board meeting. I knew what was coming. They had stacked the board with their cronies, people who were just as greedy and ambitious as they were. I walked into the boardroom I had built. It felt hostile, foreign. Mr. Harrison, the investor from the dinner party, was there. He avoided my gaze. The board meeting was a farce, a kangaroo court. They presented manipulated accounts, cooked books, showing that the company was struggling under the weight of my outdated policies. They painted me as an obstacle to growth, a dinosaur. Jessica sat there, smirking, confident. She thought she had won. They voted to remove me from the board entirely. Effective immediately, they offered a buyout for my shares at a ridiculously low price, pennies on the dollar. "It's a generous offer, David," one of the board members said. "I refuse," I said, my voice clear and strong. "Then we will sue you," Jessica said coldly. "We will claim you are mentally unfit, incompetent. We will tie you up in court for years. You will lose everything." The betrayal was complete. My own son had stolen my legacy. He had erased me from the company I built. I felt a wave of despair, a moment of doubt. Had I underestimated them? But then Robert reminded me of the ace up my sleeve. The sale of the land was about to close. The money was coming, and they had no idea. A week later, the sale of the industrial land closed. $10 million was wired into my account. It felt surreal. The number on the screen. The sudden realization of the power I now held. While Michael and Jessica were busy fighting me, distracted by their own greed, I started building something new, something better. I was walking through a local community college. I saw a display of architectural designs from the graduating class. One caught my eye. It was innovative, beautiful, but also practical, sustainable. It had a strong foundation. The designer was Emily, a young woman with a bright future. She chewed on her lip when she concentrated. I introduced myself. We talked for hours about architecture, about ethics. I saw a spark in her. The same passion, the same integrity, the same spark I had when I was young. I decided to mentor her. It felt good to teach again. I found a sense of purpose that I hadn't felt in years. We started a new company, Heritage Builders. Small, ethical, focused on quality. I hired Tom as the head of construction. I hired the other employees Michael had fired. The old crew, the loyal ones. We started bidding on small projects, rebuilding the reputation that Summit Builders had lost. We were the underdog, the comeback story, and we were hungry, but the storm was coming. The economic shift I had predicted, it arrived suddenly, like a hurricane. Interest rates spiked, the cost of materials skyrocketed, the housing market stalled. The boom was over. Summit Builders started to crumble. They had overextended themselves, taken on massive debt they couldn't service. The risky projects started failing. I watched them fail, and I felt a strange mix of sadness and vindication. They had brought this upon themselves, but Michael was still my son. A part of me wanted to help him. The father in me screamed to protect him, but I knew that bailing him out would only enable his behavior. He needed to face the consequences of his actions. He needed to learn the hard way. The hard lessons are the ones that stick. The banks started calling. They were drowning in debt. Robert decided to do some digging. He wanted to understand the full scope of the financial disaster. He wanted to know where all the money went. He started by contacting the bank manager handling Summit's accounts, Maria Sanchez. She was ethical but nervous. She kept twirling her wedding ring during their meeting. "Robert, I can't give you specifics," Maria whispered, looking over her shoulder. "But the cash flow doesn't make sense. The loans are massive, but the expenditures don't match the projects. Money is disappearing. There are red flags everywhere." She hinted at something bigger, something darker. Robert knew he needed expert help. He hired a forensic accountant, Sarah Jenkins. Sarah was meticulous. No nonsense. She drank only black coffee and always carried a red pen. She followed the money trail. It led her down a rabbit hole of shell corporations and offshore accounts. What they found was shocking. It was worse than I thought. Robert and Sarah sat me down in my new office, the Heritage Builders office. Small but honest. Robert cleaned his glasses, a bad sign. "David," Robert said, his voice grave, "I have some difficult news. Jessica hasn't just been reckless. She's been criminal." Sarah slid a folder across the desk. She tapped it with her red pen. "She's been secretly funneling money from the company into a private offshore account," Sarah explained. "For months, millions of dollars. Even while they were sinking, she was stealing. She was planning her escape." I felt a cold fury settle in my chest. She wasn't just incompetent. She was a thief. She had manipulated Michael, destroyed my company, stolen my legacy, all for her own gain. The betrayal was far deeper than I had imagined. She wasn't just greedy. She was poison. And Michael? Was he a victim or an accomplice? It didn't matter anymore. They were both desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. The end came swiftly. Summit Builders declared bankruptcy. The Ensets were being liquidated. The empire had fallen. Michael and Jessica were devastated. But the final blow was Crestview Estate. They hadn't been able to keep up with the massive mortgage payments. The bridge loan never came through. The bank foreclosed. The mansion on the hill. It was up for public auction. Michael showed up at my apartment late one night. He looked exhausted, terrified, broken. The expensive suit was gone. He looked like the boy I remembered. Before Jessica. Before the greed. "Dad, you have to help us," he begged, his voice trembling. "We're losing everything. The company. The house. Everything." "I warned you, Michael," I said quietly. "I told you this would happen. I told you that you were cutting too many corners." I know. I was wrong," he sobbed. "I listened to Jessica. She pushed me too hard. I was weak, but please, you have to help us. We're going to lose Crestview. It's Jessica's dream, still protecting her. Even now, seeing him so broken, so desperate, tore me apart. He was finally seeing the truth, but it was too late. I had the money to save him. $10 million sitting in the bank. I could have easily bought back the company, paid off the debts, but I knew it wouldn't solve the real problem. The problem was his character, his values, the rotten foundation. I had to let him fall. I had to let him hit rock bottom. "I can't help you, Michael," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You made your choices. You have to face the consequences." It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Turning away my own son. But it was necessary. The stage was set. The final act was about to begin. The climax arrived not with a bang, but with the sharp crack of an auctioneer's gavel. I walked into the auction house. It was crowded. Investors, speculators, vultures circling the carcass of summit builders. Robert was by my side, calm, steady. I saw Michael and Jessica sitting near the front. Jessica looked pale, her eyes darting nervously. Michael looked defeated, resigned. I knew Jessica would be there. Crestview was her obsession. I also knew, thanks to Robert and Sarah's investigation, that she had enough stolen money hidden away to make a bid. She had managed to hide some of it from the bankruptcy proceedings. She was planning to buy it back herself, leaving Michael with nothing. The final betrayal. The auction began. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the room. Crestview Estate, a magnificent property, a symbol of luxury and exclusivity. The bidding started low, but quickly climbed. A few investors made bids, but soon it became a two-horse race. Jessica, bidding through a proxy, and a wealthy developer. The bidding reached $5 million. The developer hesitated. Jessica's proxy bid $5.1 million. I knew from Robert that this was likely her limit, the extent of the money she had managed to hide. The auctioneer called out, $5.1 million. Going once, going twice. The room held its breath. Jessica leaned forward, anticipating the victory. A small smile played on her lips. Just as the auctioneer was about to slam the gavel, I raised my hand. $6 million, I said, my voice clear and strong. The room went silent, dead silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Jessica's head snapped around. Her eyes widened in shock. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Michael stared at me. Speechless, confused. The auctioneer, startled, confirmed the bid, $6 million. Do I hear 6.1? He looked at Jessica's proxy. The proxy looked at Jessica. She shook her head frantically, defeated. $6 million. Going once, going twice, sold to Mr. David Miller. The gavel cracked. The sound echoed through the silent room. I walked to the front of the room to sign the paperwork. The weight of the moment settled on me. I had just bought the mansion my daughter-in-law coveted, the symbol of her greed and ambition. Jessica rushed toward me, her face contorted in fury, the mask of sophistication gone, replaced by raw, ugly rage. "How could you?" she hissed, her voice trembling. "How could you do this to us? That was our house, our dream. You stole it from us." I met her gaze calmly. The anger I had felt earlier was gone, replaced by a cold resolve, a sense of justice. "This house," I said, gesturing around the room, "this house was never yours, Jessica. It was a fantasy, built on debt, deception, and stolen money." Michael joined us, his face ashen, still confused. "Dad, why?" he whispered. "Why did you buy it? You don't even like this kind of house." I didn't buy it to live in it, Michael, I said. I looked at both of them. Michael, I said. I looked at both of them. My son and the woman who had poisoned his heart. I bought it because you needed a lesson. I signaled to Robert. He handed me the documents, the proof of Jessica's embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the wire transfers, Sarah Jenkins' report. I know about the offshore account, Jessica, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the noise of the dispersing crowd. I know you stole from the company. From me, from your husband, millions of dollars. I handed the documents to Michael. And I know, I continued, looking at Jessica, that you were planning to use that stolen money to buy this house for yourself today, leaving Michael with the debt, the lawsuits, the ruins. Michael looked at the papers, the bank statements, the undeniable proof. Then he looked at Jessica. The realization dawned on him, the final, agonizing betrayal. He saw the depth of her manipulation, her cruelty. Jessica, he whispered, his voice broken, is this true? Did you steal from us? From me? She said nothing, her face pale and defiant. She looked trapped, cornered. You both destroyed a company that took me 40 years to build, I continued, my voice ringing with the weight of my sacrifice. You fired loyal employees. You lied. You cheated. You stole. And for what? For this? I pointed to the brochure of Crestview Estate. You said my presence ruined your home, I said, looking at Jessica. You wanted the image, but you didn't want the work. You wanted the success, but you didn't understand the sacrifice. I looked at my son, the boy I loved, the boy I had lost. You didn't understand the value of a strong foundation, Michael. I built my life on a foundation of hard work, integrity, and loyalty. You built yours on greed, ambition, and betrayal, and that is why you failed. I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, speechless, broken, surrounded by the ruins of their dreams. The fallout was swift and merciless. Summit Builders was gone, reduced to rubble. The lawsuits piled up. The creditors circled. Robert had already forwarded the evidence of Jessica's embezzlement to the authorities. The forensic accounting report was damning. She faced criminal charges, fraud, embezzlement, grand larceny. The money she stole was seized, recovered, returned to the bankruptcy court to pay off the creditors, and the employees she had fired. I saw her arrest on the evening news. Detective Miller, a calm professional officer who always addressed people formally, leading her away in handcuffs. Miss Jessica Miller, you are under arrest, he said, his voice steady. The queen of the glass box had fallen. Michael, finally seeing the truth about Jessica, and himself, filed for divorce. He lost everything, the business, the house, the flashy lifestyle, the expensive suits, but in the wreckage he seemed to find something he had lost long ago, his integrity. He came to see me a few weeks later. He looked older, humbled. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a profound sadness and regret. I'm sorry, Dad, he said, his voice thick with emotion. He didn't make excuses. He didn't beg for help. He didn't blame Jessica. I was a fool. I was greedy, and I was weak. I forgot everything you taught me. I forgot who I was. I forgot what really mattered. I know, son, I said. It was hard to look at him, to see the pain in his eyes. But I also saw a glimmer of the boy I raised, the boy Mary loved. What will you do now? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. I have to start over, from the bottom. I have to rebuild, the right way this time. He paused. I just wanted to say thank you for the lesson. I understand now. Foundations matter. He left, and I felt a small sense of closure, a glimmer of hope. Maybe one day we could rebuild our relationship, brick by brick. But it would take time. It would require work. It would require trust. As for me, I had a new purpose. The Crestview Estate. The mansion on the hill. It was too big, too grand for one man. But it was perfect for what I had in mind. I didn't sell it. I transformed it. I hired Tom, Emily, and the rest of the Heritage Builders crew. We renovated the mansion, turning it into the headquarters for my new venture, the Heritage Foundation. The foundation was a non-profit organization dedicated to training young builders and architects, a place where they could learn the trade, the value of hard work, the importance of integrity, a sanctuary for those who believed in craftsmanship over profit. Emily took the lead, running the architectural program. Tom managed the construction training. I found a new family, A family built not on blood, but on shared values. Respect, mutual support. My sacrifices hadn't been in vain. They had forged the strength I needed to withstand the betrayal, the compassion to build this new sanctuary. I often sat on the porch of Crestview, watching the young people work. They were passionate, eager to learn. They had the spark. One evening, Emily joined me. We watched the sun set over the city I had helped build. "You did a good thing here, David," she said quietly. "We did a good thing," I corrected her. I looked at my hands, the rough, calloused hands that had built Summit Builders. They still felt like a promise. I realized then that my true legacy wasn't the company I built, or the money I made. It wasn't even my son. My true legacy was the knowledge I shared, the support I gave, the foundations I helped build in the lives of others. I was 65 years old, and I was just getting started. My presence didn't ruin anything. It created a home, and as I watched the lights flicker on in the city below, I knew that Mary would be proud. The foundation was strong, and this time it would last. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your time matters.